Inheriting a retirement account can set off a chain reaction that derails some of the very best retirement plans. But how can getting more money throw off your plans? Well, today we're going to talk about the tax rules that can be a minefield for inheriting a traditional IRA or 401k. Hi, my name is Chris Sobolski, and I help people just like you retire with dignity, purpose, and your eyes set on the future. And hey, we're a newer channel, so please like, subscribe, comment. Anything you do helps the channel out. Well, our retirement plan is a carefully choreographed dance, and oftentimes adding a traditional IRA or 401k to that plan from an inheritance can trip up even the best plans. So let's dive in and see how we address these issues. First, we need to figure out which type of account you inherited. Was it a traditional IRA or 401k? Money taken from that is taxed at ordinary income when withdrawn. A Roth IRA or Roth 401k has withdrawals that are usually tax-free as long as that account has been open for 5 years or more. And second, we want to ask who's inheriting the money. If a spouse is inheriting the money, well, that spouse can take that traditional or Roth IRA and make it their own account. But if a non-spouse inherits it, generally, and we'll get to the exceptions in a few seconds here, but generally a non-spouse has to withdraw all of that money from those accounts within 10 years. Well, actually December 31st of the 10th year. Now, in times past, before the Secure Act, before COVID, beneficiaries could stretch out those distributions over their lifetime. They could take RMDs for the rest of their life. And now that rule only applies to eligible designated beneficiaries. Now, who are these people and how are they able to stretch those distributions over the lifetime? Well, first, we've got a surviving spouse or a minor child until they reach the age of majority, and then the 10-year rule kicks in for them. If you're disabled, chronically ill, those people can stretch out the RMD over their lifetime, or a beneficiary that's less than 10 years younger than the person who died. So where does the tax trap come in when inheriting these traditional IRAs? Because when we inherit, say, a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k, we're not getting taxed on the withdrawals. We might want these accounts to grow for, say, 10 years before taking any withdrawals out. There's really no consequence to pulling these monies out because the IRS doesn't care. So with Roth IRAs, we're going to put that away for this video and just focus on inheriting traditional IRAs. So the trap comes from when we take the money out, it's taxed at ordinary income. And a lot of times people will want to take out large withdrawals. But when you take large withdrawals out from that traditional IRA, they come with large tax bills. Remember, traditional IRAs, traditional 401ks equal taxable income when withdrawn. Now, let's say you inherit a very small traditional IRA. Taking the money out in 1 year might not push you into the next tax bracket, but that's what we're worried about. One big withdrawal could bump you up multiple tax brackets. And so instead of, say, stretching the money out over 10 years, say we take it all out in 1 year, we could needlessly pay much more in taxes. So the general plan is that we want to look at our income expectations, say, maybe you're newly retired and you have Social Security or a pension, and we want to see, based on our Social Security or pension, how much we need to withdraw from our accounts, what our tax brackets will be, and generally we want to plan to withdraw from our traditional IRA or inherited IRAs to stay in the same bracket. So let's say that we're newly retired, we have Social Security, we're taking out about $50K a year from our portfolio, and we just inherited $500,000 in a traditional IRA. Well, in this scenario, we could easily stop taking money from our portfolio and simply take $50K a year from our traditional IRA. Obviously, we're hoping that the traditional IRA grows over the 10 years, but simply taking out $50K a year meets our income need and generally would keep us around the same tax bracket of where we would otherwise not, assuming that we were maybe taking from a Roth IRA or a taxable account. But that's the simple answer right there. You'd stretch that out over 10 years, taking $50K. But where this gets complicated is, let's say that you don't need to take the money from your portfolio, or you're in your later retirement years and you're taking RMDs. Those RMDs, required minimum distributions, are required. And so now you might have a scenario where You're required to take 50K a year from your own traditional IRA, and now you have, 50, 100,000 inherited IRA that you also have to withdraw down in a matter of 10 years. So what do we do now? Well, in one sense, our hands are tied, right? Because we can't forego our own required minimum distributions and then pay a 25% penalty on what we were supposed to take out. And we have to get rid of that inherited IRA over 10 years or face another penalty. This extra 50K a year could very well push us into the next tax bracket or next Medicare bracket. These things alone could cost us tens of thousands of dollars of extra taxes for the next decade. So this is where inherited traditional IRAs can derail your retirement plan. So what are some options when we know that there's a potential for an inherited traditional IRA out there? Well, I have a new client who's in their mid 60s with a father who's almost 90 years old. He's not in terrible health, but he's approaching 90 years old, right? They have RMDs of about $40,000 a year when they hit 73. And right now, the client's father has about $1 million in his traditional IRA, and his RMDs are really high, about 80K a year. So my clients have pensions and Social Security. They aren't withdrawing from their accounts. They have about 100K in taxable income. And each year, right now, they're squarely in the 12% tax bracket. Now, if my client's father passes today and she inherits $1 million account and takes out 100K a year for the next 10 years, then she'll have 200K of income for the next 10 years. Basically, all of that extra 100K she's taken out of the IRA distribution will be taxed at 22%. Also, when she starts getting her own RMDs, then they'll be over the next Medicare bracket and have to pay about 40% more for their Medicare. So basically, the inheritance can impute a bunch of taxes and headache. So what's the plan? Well, they're doing Roth conversions to prepay the taxes on their own traditional IRA. They're hoping to completely convert their accounts by the time they reach 73. They're targeting paying within that 22% tax bracket and then keeping their Roth IRA invested in primarily stocks and hoping for growth. The dad isn't doing any conversions, however. Why? Well, with his Social Security and required minimum distributions, he's right in the 24% tax bracket. So any conversions would be in that 24% bracket. Now, 22 isn't much different than 24, but for the dad converted in a higher bracket and the kids inheriting it, we're pulling it out at a lower bracket. That doesn't make a lot of sense, right? On top of that, the father at his age is mostly invested in cash and bonds. So converting the money and leaving it in cash doesn't give it a lot of opportunity to grow. Therefore, a Roth conversion doesn't make as much sense for the dad because we're thinking not only of his own situation, but where the money's going to go after he passes. Does this make sense? So as you do your own retirement planning, think of if there are any inheritances, how those account types are structured, and how that will affect you. It can really derail a plan if all of a sudden you inherit an account and have to start taking very large distributions. And you might have to pay a lot more taxes on that. If this is the case, getting a head start and planning years in advance on not only your own retirement plan, but on potential inheritances can save you thousands and thousands of dollars. Now, I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, please reach out via the link below in the video. I'd really appreciate it if you like, comment, subscribe. Anything you do helps the channel. Hope you have a great day.